Earth, a planet where even stepping outside can kill you. That was the shocking revelation for Odin, a slender, purple-skinned Mizarian, as Jeremy Parker, a tall, athletic human with short brown hair and piercing blue eyes, casually mentioned the deadly nature of his home planet while unpacking his bags. Jeremy was one of the few humans attending the prestigious galactic university on Zephyria Prime. "Wait, what? Earth is a Deathworld?" Odin asked, his large eyes widening. Jeremy shrugged. "I guess compared to a lot of other planets, it is pretty dangerous. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, poisonous animals and plants everywhere. The gravity and atmosphere are harsher than most species can handle. I've heard a lot of aliens can't even breathe our air mix without getting sick." Odin stared at Jeremy as if he had just sprouted a second head. "And you two humans, you just live there all the time?" "All our lives," Jeremy said, tossing his duffel bag on the bed. "We grew up there, we're used to it. It's all we know." "Incredible," Odin whispered, shaking his head slowly. "I had no idea. Everyone just said humans were unusually resilient, maybe even a little crazy. Now it makes sense." Jeremy chuckled. "Crazy, huh? I guess we'd have to be, living on a planet that keeps trying to kill us. But it's not all bad. Toughens you up. We learn to adapt, to survive. Overcoming challenges is in our nature." As they finished unpacking, Jeremy couldn't help but wonder what other prejudices the galactic community held about humans. If they were shocked by Earth's conditions, how would they react when they learned the full extent of human tenacity, ingenuity, and sheer determination to live? He had a feeling this was going to be an eye-opening experience for both himself and his alien peers. Humans may be the underdogs here, but Jeremy was determined to show everyone what his species was truly made of. As the days passed, Jeremy found himself under an ever-intensifying spotlight. In his xenobiology lecture, the insectoid professor's compound eyes seemed to linger on him as she discussed Earth's hostile environment and the remarkable resilience of its human inhabitants. The lecture hall filled with the rustling of exoskeletons and the fluttering of membranous wings as dozens of alien eyes turned to stare at Jeremy, their gazes a mix of awe and unease. After class, Jeremy was swarmed by a group of curious students, each more alien than the last. A bulky Kronax, his scaly hide glinting under the fluorescent lights, loomed over Jeremy, firing off questions about Earth's apex predators. A lithe Ethian, her telepathic presence brushing against the edges of Jeremy's mind, inquired about the psychological toll of living on a death world. "Is it true that humans regularly survive exposure to toxic substances?" the Kronax rumbled, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "I heard that human children are trained to navigate through extreme weather events as a rite of passage," the Ethian added, her voice a whisper in Jeremy's mind. Jeremy shifted uncomfortably, feeling like a bug under a magnifying glass. He tried to downplay the severity of Earth's conditions, but his classmates' morbid fascination only seemed to grow with each deflection. Later, as Jeremy and Odin explored the university's sprawling grounds, an unsettling sensation crept over Jeremy. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and he couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were tracking his every move. In the dimly lit courtyard, shadows seemed to flicker and dance at the edges of his vision. "Did you see that?" Jeremy asked, his voice tight with tension. Odin, lost in his excitement over the upcoming cultural festival, turned to Jeremy with a quizzical look. "See what?" Jeremy scanned the courtyard, his eyes searching the darkness for any sign of movement. For a moment, he thought he saw a figure dart behind a pillar, but when he blinked, it was gone. "Nothing," Jeremy muttered, shaking his head. "Just my imagination." But as they continued their walk, Jeremy couldn't ignore the prickling sensation at the back of his neck, the feeling that someone, or something, was stalking him from the shadows. He quickened his pace, eager to reach the safety of his dorm room, but the unseen presence seemed to follow, always just out of sight, always watching. As Jeremy navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the university, he couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in around him. His classmates, once eager to engage with the intriguing human, now seemed to regard him with a mixture of morbid fascination and thinly veiled apprehension. In his advanced engineering course, Jeremy found himself paired with Zorax, a brilliant but distant Zephyrian, and Asher, a timid Lumina with empathic abilities. As they huddled around the holographic display, discussing the intricacies of wormhole stabilization, Jeremy noticed Zorax's eyes constantly darting in his direction. The Zephyrian's gaze held a disconcerting blend of academic curiosity and barely concealed fear, as if Jeremy were a particularly dangerous specimen to be studied from a safe distance. Asha, too, seemed to withdraw from Jeremy's presence, her luminescent skin flickering with unease whenever he drew near. The Lumina's telepathic abilities, though muted, hinted at a deep-seated discomfort that Jeremy couldn't quite place. One evening, as the twin moons of Zephyria Prime cast an eerie glow over the university grounds, Jeremy found himself alone in the cavernous library. The ancient stacks loomed above him, their shadowy recesses hiding untold secrets. As he pored over a dusty tome on advanced propulsion systems, a strange sound echoed from the depths of the library. A whisper, barely audible, yet filled with an unsettling urgency. Intrigued, Jeremy followed the sound, weaving through the labyrinthine shelves until he found himself in a hidden alcove, tucked away from prying eyes. There, nestled among the cobwebs and forgotten relics, was a section dedicated entirely to Earth and its history. With trembling hands, Jeremy reached for a data crystal, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. As he activated the device, a holographic projection sprang to life, revealing a chilling tale of a long-forgotten alien empire that had once dared to invade Earth. The invaders, it seemed, had vastly underestimated the tenacity and resourcefulness of Earth's defenders. Despite their advanced technology and overwhelming numbers, the alien forces had been repelled by the planet's savage inhabitants, their conquest thwarted by the sheer determination of the human race. As Jeremy delved deeper into the library's forbidden knowledge, a sense of unease crept over him. The records hinted at a dark secret, a truth that threatened to shatter the delicate balance of the galactic community. With each passing moment, Jeremy felt the weight of this revelation pressing down upon him, a burden he hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. Unbeknownst to Jeremy, a shadowy figure lurked in the darkness, their eyes glinting with malevolent intent. As the human finally tore himself away from the unsettling discovery, the figure silently followed, melting into the shadows like a wraith. Jeremy left the library, his mind reeling with the implications of what he had found, unaware of the watchful presence tracking his every move. In the days that followed, Jeremy found himself haunted by the knowledge he had uncovered in the library's hidden alcove. Sleep became elusive, as vivid nightmares plagued his mind, painting a terrifying picture of Earth under siege by alien forces. In his dreams, Jeremy witnessed the destruction of his home world, cities reduced to rubble and human survivors fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. A dark, malevolent presence seemed to orchestrate the chaos from the shadows, its sinister intentions palpable even in the realm of dreams. One night, Jeremy jolted awake, his heart pounding and his skin slick with sweat. As he sat up in bed, he noticed that his dorm room was in disarray, with datapads and clothing strewn across the floor. He called out for Odin, but there was no response. The Mizarian's bed was empty, the sheets cold to the touch. Jeremy searched the room, a sense of unease growing in the pit of his stomach. As he rummaged through Odin's belongings, he stumbled upon a hidden datapad, its screen flickering with encrypted messages. Curiosity and trepidation warred within him as he decrypted the files, revealing a series of exchanges between Odin and an unknown conspirator. The messages spoke of a secret society known as the Void Watchers, an ancient order that had been monitoring Earth and its inhabitants for centuries. They whispered of a grand plan, a moment when the Void Watchers would strike, exploiting the perceived weaknesses of the human race and claiming Earth for their own nefarious purposes. Jeremy's blood ran cold as he read the words, a sense of dread settling over him like a suffocating blanket. He knew he had to act, to find a way to protect his home planet from the impending threat. But who could he turn to? Who would believe him? A lone human in a sea of alien faces. Desperate and alone, Jeremy sought out the only allies he had left, Zorax and Asher. In hushed tones he shared his findings with them, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. To his surprise, they listened intently, their own suspicions and doubts about the galactic community's perception of Earth bubbling to the surface. Together, the unlikely trio began to piece together the fragmented clues, scouring the university's archives and tapping into their respective networks for any scrap of information that might shed light on the Void Watchers and their sinister plot. As they delved deeper into the conspiracy, a picture began to emerge, one that threatened not only Earth, but the entire galactic balance of power. But their investigations did not go unnoticed. As Jeremy, Zorax, and Asher raced against time to uncover the truth, they found themselves drawn into a dangerous game of cat and mouse. The Void Watchers, it seemed, were always one step ahead, their agents lurking in the shadows, ready to silence anyone who dared to expose their secrets. Tensions rose as the trio navigated a treacherous landscape of lies and deception, never knowing who they could trust. They were stalked by an unseen enemy, a presence that seemed to follow their every move, always just out of sight, but never far from their thoughts. One evening, as Jeremy made his way back to his dorm, he felt the familiar prickling sensation at the back of his neck. He spun around, his eyes searching the darkened hallway for any sign of movement. And there, emerging from the shadows, was a figure he had once trusted above all others. Odin stepped into the light, his purple skin glinting coldly under the fluorescent bulbs. In his hand he held a sleek alien weapon, its barrel pointed directly at Jeremy's chest. A cruel smile played across Odin's lips as he revealed the shocking truth. He was a member of the Void Watchers, a sleeper agent tasked with infiltrating the Galactic University and monitoring the human who had caused such a stir among the stars. Jeremy stood frozen, his mind reeling from the betrayal. He had confided in Odin, shared his fears and doubts, never suspecting that his roommate, his friend, could be a part of the very conspiracy he sought to unravel. As Odin advanced, his weapon at the ready, Jeremy knew that he was in for the fight of his life, not just for his own survival, but for the fate of Earth itself. Jeremy stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest as he stared down the barrel of Odin's weapon. The betrayal cut deep, a searing pain that threatened to consume him. "Why?" Jeremy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this?" Odin's face remained impassive, his purple skin glinting coldly in the dim light. "The Void Watchers have been watching Earth for centuries, Jeremy. We've seen the destruction your kind is capable of, the chaos you sow wherever you go. Humanity is a cancer, a blight upon the galaxy that must be excised before it spreads too far." Jeremy shook his head, disbelief and anger warring within him. "You're wrong, we're not a threat, we're just trying to survive like everyone else." Odin laughed, a harsh grating sound that echoed through the empty hallway. "Survive? You humans don't just survive, you conquer, you subjugate, you destroy. The Void Watchers have seen the future, and it is one where humanity reigns supreme, crushing all who stand in their way. We cannot allow that to happen." Jeremy's mind raced, desperately searching for a way out of this nightmare. He thought of Zorax and Asher, his only allies in this strange, hostile world. He had to find them, to warn them of the danger they all faced. As if reading his thoughts, Odin's grip tightened on the weapon. "Don't even think about it, Jeremy. Your friends can't help you now. The Void Watchers have eyes everywhere, and they will stop at nothing to see their plan through to the end." Jeremy's eyes darted to the shadows, searching for any sign of movement. He knew he had to act fast to find a way to escape and regroup with Zorax and Asher. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. In a flash of desperate inspiration, Jeremy lunged forward, his hand closing around Odin's wrist. The two struggled for control of the weapon, grappling in a deadly dance of strength and will. Jeremy felt the cold metal of the gun pressing against his skin, the sickening sensation of Odin's warm breath on his face. With a final desperate surge of strength, Jeremy wrenched the weapon from Odin's grasp. The Mizarian stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock and fury. Jeremy didn't hesitate. He turned and ran, his heart hammering in his chest as he raced through the twisting corridors of the university, the sound of Odin's enraged shouts echoing behind him. He burst into Zorax's lab, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Zorax and Asher looked up, startled by his sudden appearance. Jeremy wasted no time in explaining the situation, the words tumbling from his lips in a frantic rush. "The Void Watchers, they're planning to attack Earth, and Odin, he's one of them. We have to stop them before it's too late." Zorax's face hardened, his eyes glinting with a steely resolve. "We've got work to do." As Jeremy, Zorax and Asher raced through the university's labyrinthine halls, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to conceal a hidden threat, every corner a potential ambush. Their fears were soon realized as they rounded a bend and found themselves face to face with a group of Void Watchers, each more formidable than the last. At their head stood a towering Kronax, his scaly hide glinting in the dim light. Beside him, a lithe Ethian leveled a pulsing energy staff at the trio, her telepathic presence pressing against their minds like a suffocating weight. Jeremy and his friends skidded to a halt, their hearts pounding in their chests. The Kronax stepped forward, his voice a low, menacing rumble. "You've caused quite a stir, human," he hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "But your meddling ends here." Jeremy's hand tightened around the stolen weapon, his finger hovering over the trigger. He knew they were outnumbered and outmatched, but he refused to back down. Earth's fate hung in the balance, and he would fight to his last breath to protect his home. Beside him, Zorax and Asher tensed, ready for battle. Zorax's eyes darted to a nearby control panel, his brilliant mind already calculating a plan of attack. Asher's luminescent skin pulsed with a soft, steady light, her empathic abilities reaching out to soothe the rising fear in her companions' hearts. "Jeremy," Zorax whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the energy staff. "When I give the signal, run. Don't look back, just run." Jeremy nodded, his grip on the weapon tightening. He knew what Zorax was planning, and the thought of leaving his friend behind tore at his heart. But he also knew that Zorax was right. They had to get to the command center, to stop the Void Watchers before it was too late. The Kronax stepped forward, his claws flexing in anticipation. "Surrender and your deaths will be quick. Resist and you will suffer beyond your darkest nightmares." Zorax's eyes met Jeremy's, a silent understanding passing between them. In that moment, Jeremy saw the depth of his friend's courage, the unwavering loyalty that had brought them to this desperate place. "Now!" Zorax shouted, his hand slamming down on the control panel. The hallway erupted in a blinding flash of light, the energy staff's blast ricocheting off the walls in a dizzying display of power. Jeremy and Asher turned and ran, their hearts pounding in their ears as they raced towards the command center. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of battle, the crackle of energy weapons, and the enraged roars of the Void Watchers. As they rounded the final corner, they found themselves standing before a massive door, its surface etched with strange, alien symbols. Jeremy's heart sank as he realized the door was locked, the control panel beside it dark and lifeless. But Asher stepped forward, her slender fingers dancing over the panel with a surprising speed and skill. The door hissed open, revealing a vast circular room filled with banks of computers and holographic displays. And there, in the center of it all, stood a towering device, its surface pulsing with a sickly green light. Jeremy's blood ran cold as he realized what he was looking at. The Doomsday device, the weapon that would obliterate Earth and all who called it home. Asher gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in horror. "Jeremy, we have to stop it. We have to find a way to shut it down." Jeremy nodded, his mind racing as he scanned the room for any sign of a weakness, a vulnerability they could exploit. But the device was unlike anything he had ever seen, a twisted amalgamation of alien technology and malevolent intent. Suddenly the door behind them exploded inward, the force of the blast sending Jeremy and Asher flying. Through the smoke and debris, Jeremy could see the Void Watchers pouring into the room, their weapons trained on the two survivors. And there at their head stood Odin, his face twisted in a mask of triumphant rage. "You're too late, Jeremy," he snarled, his finger hovering over the trigger of his weapon. "The device is armed, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Jeremy struggled to his feet, his mind reeling with the realization of what was about to happen. Earth, his home, everything he had ever known and loved, was about to be wiped from existence. And then, a voice cut through the chaos, a voice he had never expected to hear again. Zorax, battered and bloodied but alive, staggered into the room, his eyes fixed on the doomsday device. "I can disarm it," he gasped, his voice ragged with pain. "But I need time. Jeremy, Asher, you have to hold them off." Jeremy and Asher exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew what they had to do, the sacrifice they would have to make to give Zorax the time he needed. As one, they turned to face the Void Watchers, their weapons raised in defiance. The battle was joined, a desperate struggle for survival against impossible odds. Jeremy fought with a savage intensity, his every blow fueled by the knowledge of what was at stake. Beside him, Asher moved with a fluid grace, her empathic abilities allowing her to anticipate her enemy's every move. But even as they fought, Jeremy could feel the tide turning against them. The Void Watchers were too many, too strong. One by one they fell, until only Jeremy and Asher remained, their backs pressed against the doomsday device as the Void Watchers closed in for the kill. And then a blinding flash of light erupted from the device, the force of the explosion sending Jeremy and Asher flying. Through the haze of pain and confusion, Jeremy could see Zorax, his hand still resting on the device's control panel, a peaceful smile on his face. "Go," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the roar of the flames. "Live." Jeremy and Asher stumbled to their feet, their hearts heavy with grief as they fled the burning command center. Behind them, the device exploded in a final cataclysmic burst of energy, consuming the Void Watchers and their twisted plans in a fiery inferno. In the aftermath of the battle, the galactic authorities moved swiftly to contain the damage. The full extent of the Void Watchers' conspiracy was uncovered, leading to a series of arrests and trials that shook the very foundations of the galactic order. Jeremy, hailed as a hero by some and reviled as a pariah by others, found himself at the center of a storm of controversy and intrigue. His actions had exposed the dark underbelly of the galactic community, the festering prejudices and hidden agendas that had allowed the Void Watchers to flourish. But through it all, Jeremy remained steadfast in his conviction, a living symbol of Earth's resilience and the indomitable human spirit. He knew that the galaxy would never be the same, that the revelation of humanity's potential had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the cosmic order for generations to come. As he stood on the cliffs of his homeland, his gaze fixed on the stars above, Jeremy knew that the true struggle for Earth's future had only just begun. The Void Watchers had been defeated, but there would always be those who feared and resented humanity's place among the stars. But Jeremy also knew that he would never stop fighting, never stop striving to build a better future for his people and for all the beings of the galaxy. For in the end, that was what it meant to be human, to stand tall in the face of adversity, to fight for what was right, no matter the cost. And so as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to shine, Jeremy turned his face to the sky, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.